मैं प्रतिज्ञा करता हूं कि किसी भी हिंदू भाई को हिंदू धर्म से विमुख नहीं होने दूंगा। जो भाई धर्म छोड़कर चले गए उनकी भी घर वापसी के लिए कार्य करूंगा एवं उन्हें परिवार का हिस्सा बनाऊंगा।
Let's get the right perspective now on this entire pledge that has been made by Mohan Bhagwat, the Sarsang Chalak of the RSS. This is something which Savarkar espoused way back in 1921, where he said that we are Hindus. He was an atheist, but he said that I am politically a Hindu because he believed that this community, this grouping, the Sabhyata had to come together and unite as Hindu and identify themselves as of this motherland, as of Bharatvarsha, as Bharatvarsis, irrespective of what their puja paddhati or belief, personal faith belief is. Now that's where it started. Savarkar, of course, was from the Hindu Mahasabha. He and the RSS had different ways of outlooks. But what was spoken by Mohan Bhagwat yesterday, the pledge that he administered at the Hindu Ekta Mahakumbh at Chitrakoot, with the presence of many other leaders of and practitioners of the Sanatan Pratha. Is this a political compulsion which is happening, the return to dharma per se, or is it driven by sabhyata or civilizational community awakening? Has India shifted from its cultural center, pivot, and is that over the last 1,000 years, and is this in a way an attempt to try and bring it back on that center? Let's get to the discussion per se. How would you see? Is this a political call, Neeraj Atri, or do you believe societally, sabhyata wise, we need to figure out who we are? Return to our Hindu ethos.
Absolutely. There is no doubt that since we are a civilizational nation who has been under attack for last, as you very rightly said, for about last 1,000 years, and it is just now that we are trying to reorganize and regroup ourselves so as to reclaim what has been taken away from us. And in that sense, yes, I fully agree that what Mohan Bhagwat has said makes a lot of sense. Because if you look at the larger perspective, RSS is said to be a nationalistic and social organization. And if they intend to fulfill both these objectives, then what the recent statement that you were referring to makes perfect sense in that regard. And of course, something that we missed, the ground that we lost during these 1,000 years, we have to reclaim it for ourselves.
So, Dushyant Sridhar, where do you stand? Because on the one hand, you had Mohan Bhagwat say that Hindu is anybody who believes this is their Purvajo ki bhumi. Whatever is your puja paddhati, as long as you believe this is your roots, this is your motherland, you are a Hindu for me. So that's a larger concept of nationhood, of civilization. But when he says Hindu dharma, what does he mean? Does he mean puja paddhati?
Namaskaram Anand and to my panelists. With respect to the word Hindu, it's been spoken in the past many times by research scholars. It is largely opined that it is a geographical area beyond the Sindhu river. But over a period of time, when we had religions coming in this very land, many other religions which were foreign to the land also being accepted in this land, it is bound to be right when we say that Hindu today means largely a person who follows Sanatana Dharma. But the word conversion has been treated as a very negative word for a very long time. In Sanatana Dharma, we have had many conversions. We have had people who were followers of Purva Mimamsa getting converted to Advaita Vedanta. Adi Shankara did that. Many people who follow Vaishnavism go to Shaivism and vice versa. So between philosophies, between theologies, there has been conversion. But conversion gets a negative connotation when it is done through force or when people are lured through money. So if the call is a genuine call by Sri Mohan Bhagwat ji or anybody for that matter, that a person who likes the tenets of a certain religion still has the opportunity and the right to go to that religion or to come back to the religion where he or she was, I don't think there is anything constitutionally wrong or there is something which is logically untenable. So everything is possible. So I don't see anything fundamentally wrong with this call, fundamentally. But if it's done through force and all of that, then it is wrong. But fundamentally, there is nothing wrong when a person says that if you want to get back to this religion, please do come back.
Yeah, but the challenge here, Neeraj, is that we should know who we are. We should know before we accept another faith, another paddhati, another theology or philosophy. We should know what our original philosophy is. If I don't know what the Bhagavad Gita is, I just know it as a book which is kept on the puja shelf or in the puja room, but I've never read it. If I don't know what my cultural civilizational roots are, if I don't know that concepts which are peddled in the 15th, 16th century by Western civilization are something which we know more than 3000, 4000 BC, then how do I justify this idea? Because somewhere, do you agree that we've been moved away from our own learnings?
I'm sorry, is this question to me?
To Neeraj, and then Dushyant, you can take it forward.
Okay, sure, sorry.
Okay. Anandji, I think you are absolutely right that our education system has been specifically designed to take us away from our roots, and that is the reason we are observing that the present generation, or for that matter, the last 3 generations, have been deracinated from the basic roots, what Sridharji was very eloquently saying as Sanatan Dharma. We've been kept away from it. So there is no doubt that we are in a process of evaluating ourselves, identifying ourselves, but at the same time, when we are talking about converting them back, those who have been taken away from us, that for that we don't even have to regroup for our own roots. The reason for that is very simple. If we just look at our constitution, it says that there are some fundamental duties of the citizens.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at Article 51AH, it is very explicitly stating that it is the fundamental duty of every citizen of India to develop a scientific temper, humanism, and a spirit of inquiry and reform.
Yeah.
So all that Mohan Bhagwat is saying is in consonance with the directive principles of the Constitution. And at the same time, again, I'm reiterating that we don't have to go through Bhagavad Gita to find out that should we be believing in a creed which was originated in 7th century Arabian desert, where there is a god who sits on the 7th heaven, who divides the entire humanity into 2 hostile groups, one of Momins and the other of Kafirs, and they are at a perpetual war with each other. The same god calls Kafirs as the worst of the creatures. The same God permits a husband to beat his wife. The same God says that the sun sets in a murky pool of water around which people are living. The same God permits sex slavery and concubinage. Now, all these things are not compatible either with our constitutional ethos, or with scientific temper, or with humanism, or with spirit of inquiry, or with spirit of reform. So, if we look at all these things, then it is our duty to look at our fellow citizens who are in the position of an ideology which is totalitarian in its nature, although it is masquerading as a religion. So in that sense, it is our duty to bring all those people back to the fold from which they've been taken away under duress or any other circumstances.
But the other aspect is also that you are looking at a cultural shift. There is a push for the Arabi way of life in India. Then you have an issue. There is a push for, there is also the Joshua project. Aarti Agarwal has written about the Joshua project. So there is the Abrahamical offshoots which have their own way of pushing and telling you that the life that you are leading is wrong. The culture that you follow is wrong. The education that you have got is wrong. The language that you speak, even though it's the basis for machine language, is wrong. Forget that language. Dushyant Sridhar. Sandeep Balkrishna is also with us. Sandeep, I'll come to you after Dushyant. Yeah.
So, with respect to bringing back people who may feel more close to Sanatana Dharma after having traveled to 1 or 2 religions, or bringing newer people, should ideally happen the way it happened in the past for us. So, Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, the way it is called today, has never used force largely. There could be some stray incidents, but force was never used largely, and it was done at a very intellectual level. But whether a commoner who may not be adept with the languages in which these scriptures were delivered will be conversant with, say, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, or whether that is comprehensible at his level becomes another question. So in that case, Bhakti movement becomes very important, Anand. Around the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th centuries in the southern part of our country in Tamil Nadu, the saints called as Alvars and Nayanmars gave Bhakti in simple Tamil language. Likewise, there were the Abhang Parivar, there was Tukaram, there was Namdev, there was Jnandev in the Maharashtra region. So they were Haridasa saints in the Karnataka region. So what they did was they took the quintessence of our esoteric scriptures, made it simple in the common man's language, in their very own language, be it Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, Marathi, Tamil, and they gave it to the commoners. So today when I'm asking someone, okay, are you happy with the tenets and you want to come? I would not use a Bhagavad Gita. I would rather use the Abhangs of these saints. So using Bhakti movement as one of the tools where you explain the tenets to the people, say that it is all liberal and simple and people should be treated equally, we can do that. Is what my thought is.